Hi guys, I'm this movie guy, and today I'm reviewing this book, Star Wars Lords of the Sith. I'm reviewing some Star Wars books ahead of the upcoming movie Rogue One, because some of these books may have some tie-ins to Rogue One, and I was like, you know, it's Star Wars and I read these books and I wanted to review them. So now I know there aren't a lot of people who read these books, and I don't think a lot of my subscribers actually read them, so I'm going to keep my review spoiler free. If you've not read Lords of the Sith, you are fine, you can watch this review. This review might convince you to read it, but I won't spoil plot points like this character dies or whatever. Anyway, Lords of the Sith takes place 5 years after the events of Episode 3, which means 14 years before the events of Star Wars, and it is about the two Lords of the Sith, Darth Vader and the Emperor. In this book, they are actually lured into a trap on Ryloth, because on Ryloth you still have Cham Syndulla, who is a character that appeared in the Clone Wars and actually helped Anakin back then because he was on the side of the Republic, because he wants his free Ryloth, because he's still in the free Ryloth movement. And in this book he thinks that if he takes out Vader and the Emperor, he will probably bring an end to the Empire. So the idea is that Vader and the Emperor come in their Star Destroyer to Ryloth, and then Cham, with his free Ryloth movement, tries to take that down. Now, the reason that I got this book and read it is because I heard some people say, this is the best of the canon books, it's fantastic, you should definitely read it. And while I slightly disagree with that, I do admit it's a very good one. It actually gave us some more insight between Darth Vader and the Emperor, like, how is their relation? We never really got that in the movies. Like, we saw a little bit of it in Return of the Jedi, but that is nothing compared to what you read in this book. This book really explains that relation a little bit more, and by far the best thing about this book is that we see Vader in his prime. That means that the guy can do so many powerful things that at points I was reading this book, I was in awe. My jaw just literally dropped, like, oh my god, Vader is this powerful? We never saw that in the movie, but it was awesome to read about that. And if you're like, oh, but I actually wanted to see that in a movie, I don't want to read about that. Well, the thing about this book is that it actually is very good in describing how things look. A lot of times when I was reading this book, I didn't feel like I was reading. I thought I was just watching, because I was so very able to get a picture in my mind of what was happening. I was like, wow, I think I can actually see Vader do these things. So if you're upset with the fact that you only can read about it, I should say you should not be, because it is really well explained, and I believe that people can really paint a picture when reading this book. And what I also really liked about this book is that it gave us more of Cham Syndulla and his group of rebels called the Free Ryloth movement. I mean, we already saw a little bit of him in the Clone Wars, but that is nothing compared to this book. This book really takes you into his cave on Ryloth, where he has his entire movement. You meet certain characters that he interacts with. He even has somewhat of a love interest in Isval, who is a great character actually. And I completely understood what they were coming from. Like, from the Clone Wars I knew it a little bit, and it was like explained for kids so that they could understand it. But this book is not for kids. This book is for people who are older than that and who want more of a real explanation for it. So I got that in this book, and it really gripped me, and it really made me invested in that Free Ryloth movement. And I was actually rooting for the guys to actually take down Vader and the Emperor, even though I already know Vader and the Emperor are just going to survive, because I know the movies that are after this. And it also makes more sense now that Hera is Cham's daughter, because Cham has this rebellious side to him, and like that carries over to Hera, because we know that Hera in A New Dawn and Rebels is like the leader of that group of rebels. So it's really cool to actually see that began with Cham and then it carries over to Hera. Now, I've been talking really positive about this book, but I said at the beginning of my review that I do not fully agree with the people who say this is the best book. And I have my reasons for that. I think that because of the people saying this is the best, this is awesome, I was just a little let down. Like, well, it was good, I will definitely say that. It definitely had some great parts in it, but it wasn't as gripping as, for me, like Bloodline or Lost Stars. Those two are my favorites. The thing is that when the book actually started, it started off a little bit slow. Then I think that after about 80 to 90 pages it gets going, and then it gets really good, but it has a little bit of a slow build up, so you have to get to the part where it gets really good. When I got there I was hooked, but it just got off to a little bit of a slow start, so I had a little bit like, okay, where is this going at the beginning? And also there are two characters in this that I just didn't care too much about. Those are called Mars and Belcor. Like, those two are two Imperials working on Ryloth, and Belcor actually helps Chom set up the entire trap. And they felt more like plot devices, like they were there to make sure that the plot continued, but I never was like, oh, this is an interesting character that I have to be invested in. Well, they do take up a big part of the book, so I was like, can I just skip to Vader doing awesome shit instead of Belcor and Morse bickering over who's right? Because you get that, and I was just not all that much into it. Anyway, I think that's all I can say about Lords of the Sith. I will give it an 8.5 out of 10. I mean, if you want to know more about Vader in his prime and his relation with the Emperor, you should definitely read it, because it does give a lot of explanation of that, and it also explains a lot more about Chom Syndulla and his character. And if you know Hera from Rebels, then yeah, you probably want to know a little bit more about her father. And otherwise, I just say read it, because it's just a good book. Not the best of the canon books, but it's good. So I definitely recommend reading it. Anyway, now that I've given my review, I wonder, have you read this book? And if so, what do you think of it? Like, do you like it more than I do? Do you agree with the people who I've talked to who say it's the best? Or do you, like me, have issues with it? Please, whatever you think, let me know in the comments below. Now, next week I will review Tarkin. I've actually just started reading it. I can't say right now what I really think of it, because I think I've read like 20 pages, but it's a short book. I should be able to finish that in a week, and then I'll give my thoughts about that next week, because, you know, I heard it's good. So I hope to give you a positive review next week. And as always, if you've liked my review and you want to see more of my movie and trailer reviews, click right here.